All right, well, let's move on here with the show, Jim, and we have lots of things to talk about, including something we have promised people for a while we have to do, and we're going to do it right now.
We are.
The review.
I hate to tell the truth and come through on all of our promises.
All right, well, I hear the documentation in your hands because it's always easy to hear. The Cody Rhodes documentary that aired on Peacock, which had a name of some sort, but everyone just knows it as the Cody Rhodes documentary.
Of the American, I'll give it to you. The American Nightmare, Becoming Cody Rhodes. It's always, now that's a trend, right? Becoming who this person is.
It's all about the journey.
It's artistic. But have I seen spots for something on Angle? Is there something on Angle going on now?
Yeah, actually, we've gotten a few listeners who got in touch already and said that we should check that one out too, that it's another great documentary WWE did.
Well, then we'll do that, and hopefully it won't take us 3 or 4 weeks or whatever like this one. But people keep doing things. This was a 2-hour documentary piece that the WWF has done. It was premiered and lives exclusively on the Cock for right now, right? On Peacock?
I believe so. I don't know where. I mean, unless they aired on TV at some point, I don't know where else it would have lived. They don't.
But
really
I mean, this used to be a DVD release, but I guess that's gone the way of the amalgamated buggy whips, right? They just now It's just on the Cock.
No, it was one of the smartest things they ever did. They found a way to get rid of royalties.
Yeah, I noticed that about, what was it, 8, 9 years ago now. Anyway, the video and the production, we've talked about it. They're not only do they have a production budget, but they also have a very talented staff. They have the equipment in-house. They have people that know what the fuck they're doing. They have creative people that have ideas. It's filmmaking. They're kind of taking this a little bit to the next level in terms of the standard wrestling documentary, the way it's shot, the artistry of the video, the editing, etc. They have the little concept pieces where he's out in the desert at a fucking crossroads or looking for a camel to milk it's deep, right? You see what I'm saying to you, Brian?
Of course, at the crossroads looking for a camel to milk. That's what happened to Robert Johnson, I understand.
That's right, down there in Clarksdale. Either that or it was at the Oasis. No, that was Maria Muldaur. And she was putting her camel to bed, not milking it. The Sheik is the one that got milked. Nevertheless. So Cody, but he was in these, God damn you. He was in these various, in between the chapters of the piece, he was in these various locations and sets. It was very artsy. And they do wonderful work. And it was narrated by Stephen Amell. If this was AEW, it'd be narrated by the fucking hot dog vendor or something. They went overboard here to make this a big production. And, you know, they had to start by telling a little bit of Dusty's story, the footage of him in 1977 at the Garden, the match with superstar Billy Graham, and that Cody was, you know, the second wave of Dusty's kids. And that's when Dusty wasn't on the road full time, and he was able to spend more time with them. So it wasn't beaten over the head here in this documentary, but I think there was a little bit more mention of it in the Dusty biography on A&E or whatever, that Dustin's relationship with Dusty was at a point was troubled. Everybody knows that now. Whereas Cody had a closer relationship because he was part of the second family. But anyway, I did not know the story that when Cody won his high school wrestling championship, he was a state champion junior and senior year. He went 101-2 apparently, but he made them announce him as the winner, Cody Rhodes, instead of Cody Runnels. That was cool.
That was really cool. I mean, again, this was all put together so well, and telling the story of, as you said the title was, Becoming Cody Rhodes. It really did a great job of that.
And then Cody and his sister Teal wanted to be actors and moved to Hollywood. And I guess that's where he learned the workshopping and things that we've somewhat taken him to task for. Uh, but obviously,
He'd probably disagree with us, but I agree with you. This is where he learned his worst features as a promo, like his worst qualities of sometimes the overacting, but he probably thinks it was one of the best things he did.
well, but maybe it helped him with his public speaking in general, or being more comfortable, or maybe it helped him in the way his ideas, which he doesn't hit a bullseye every time, but his promos one of the strongest part of his game. So maybe, I just
Until he gets
I've
too
just
actory. That's the
well,
problem.
that's the thing. I've just always hated the idea of not only wrestlers being called or compared to or referred to as actors, but as the wrestlers that tried to be actors. They've never been that great at it for the most part. And it was an insult to the business years ago. So yeah, but anyway, it didn't work. They left Hollywood and came back to Georgia. And that's where he told Dusty that he wanted to be a wrestler. And I like the OVW footage. I wish we missed each other by, I think, like 6 months. He was there right after I was gone, but I would have enjoyed working with Cody. But he put OVW over as college, which is what it was in those days. It was a wrestling college where even if you had experience in, you'd been to grade school or you'd maybe even been to high school, but this is where you went to graduate. And, the one thing you can say about Cody is he does not slack off. He makes the most of any opportunity and goes out and makes some of his own opportunities. He's a sponge when it comes to shit like that, and he's always trying to think of things. And you can be jaded and say, well, he's always looking for things to put himself over, or you can be, well, he's always looking for things to get himself over. And the Hall of Fame speech apparently is when the office up there in the WWE noticed that he was coming along linguistically.
It's funny. I always hear people talk about that. I always think it's a nice speech, and I never see like the thing that would have made anyone go, oh my God, we have to sign him right now. I mean, it's a nice speech and everything, but, he's smaller then. And I don't know, the idea that was the thing that turned everything around always fascinated me. Or not turned everything around, but they got him signed.
Not turned it around, just kicked it in the ass. Well, but again, some of the younger guys in that environment, that many people, that much pressure, can't handle the speech,
That's
the
true.
speaking.
And that was a period of time where they started getting a lot of the second, or in some cases third, but second generation wrestlers. Richie Steamboat, Cody Rhodes, Bray Wyatt would eventually come in there. Like over the next several years, all of a sudden you started seeing a lot of these guys who were the sons of the people from the 80s.
Well, yeah, and that was Cody's thing with legacy with Orton and DiBiase Jr. And poor DiBiase Jr. didn't pan out, to say the least, with recent events. But here Cody and Orton are, 15 years later or whatever the fuck.
Wouldn't it be a great heel turn for Cody if DiBiase Jr. shows up and says, Cody was my partner?
Oh my God, he was in the plan all along. We were riding up and down the road together, planning this in the car.
It was me, Cody, and Brett Favre.
Yeah. I always thought that when I first saw it, his name was Favre. So dashing Cody Rhodes was, boy. I didn't see much of any of this because the 2009, 10, 11, era, I was in Ring of Honor and not paying attention to anything except that. But dashing, I heard about the dashing and the whatever the fuck. And, they made the point that he tried as best he could with, whatever they gave him. But goddamn, there were some bad gimmicks being handed out at that point in time, weren't there?
Yeah, I was never a fan of dashing Cody Rhodes. And I think a lot of the gimmicks they gave him are part of the reason why it took a lot of people, including myself, time to get used to him as something else. because it was this and then eventually Stardust. In between, there was like a brief period of time, and they talk about it in this, where it was him and Dustin and Dusty. And they treated him like Cody Rhodes with his family. That was starting to get some traction, but then they didn't talk about Dusty being pulled off TV in this documentary.
Yeah. Well, and then going back to the Stardust thing, and, again, he committed to everything. He tried his hardest. But he realized that Stardust was not going to be a top guy, and he was kind of at rock bottom. And, after a year or whatever, the last year of that, he was like, why can't I get out of this? And Dusty told him to quit. What
did you think of that? What did you think of that?
Well, Dusty was the smartest one in the organization. That's what I've said. Mick Foley did this twice, I think, as a matter of fact, with WCW in 1990, 90 or 91, and again in 92 or 93.
90. And then 94.
Yeah, there you go, twice. Point is, if they're not using you, if you've got confidence in yourself, if you know you can do better, but you are in a position where if you keep doing what you're doing on national TV, your career potentially will not recover from it, then you got to go do something else. And Dusty knew that. And it's the same philosophy as in the territories. Either they weren't using you or they had used you, but now you've been there too long, or somebody's mad or whatever, you got to go somewhere else. Don't be beaten into powder. Don't be marginalized, trivialized, whatever. That's as old as the hills in wrestling, and Dusty knew that. And I think he also knew that Cody wanted to stick in it. He probably said, if you want to stick with this, then do something else. There's Japan. I don't know if anybody thought about TNA. Dusty'd been there, probably wasn't a fan. Who knows? Wherever, do something different. And that's where he made the point that there was Dusty coaching the NXT guys and grooming the stars of the next generation, and his own son couldn't be a part of it because they'd already put him on the main roster and made him look like an idiot. So he had to leave. But anyway, so then I guess it was hard to believe it's 2015 now that Dusty died. It's been that 8 years now. But hearing Cody telling that story was, heartbreaking. I think, is that the year he had the SummerSlam match with Stephen Amell, and that was Stardust. That was the end of it, right? And creative had nothing for him. He said that one of the writers was doing the turned off laptop thing. How the fuck does anybody get away with that?
How did that guy not get goozled?
Well, exactly. God damn, I had to stop Charlie Haas from goozling fucking Greg the office boy because he gave him a rude answer.
Imagine how different wrestling history would have been if you hadn't stopped him.
I bet you he probably could have fucking...
Charlie be out by now.
Well, I was about to say he could have put Greg in an iron lung with one shot, and Ring of Honor may have survived. Anyway, so finally, Cody just said, fuck it. I'm not putting this fucking suit on again. And I fired the WWE. I told them good luck in their future endeavors. And he walked away from it. And it's the same thing me and Stan did in 1990. When I thought at that point that the Midnight Express would be back together sometime soon, because I didn't think they'd keep renewing Bobby, because Herd didn't want to renew any of us. And, $150,000 in 1990, what's that today? About $450. That's why I said, fuck you, keep it. I don't like being here. I don't want to do this anymore. I got to do something else. And that's what he did.
Hey, let me ask you, what do you think it says about, because not everyone has that mindset. And we're kind of, in a sense, going through a lot of that now with Cast Media, because we said, fuck you to the 6 figures we're owed. And we're going to try to figure out a way to get as much of that back as possible. But if we don't, we don't. You said the same thing in WCW in 1990. I've guaranteed money on the table. I'd rather try to do something else, still make that money some way, but I'd rather try. Cody made the same decision. Not everyone does that. What kind of mindset do you need to make that happen? How much self-belief do you need?
Well, in my case, it was I will fucking either have a heart attack and die or run over one of these motherfuckers with my car if I ever have to look at any of them ever again. That is where I'd go. So I just want to go home. Fuck it. I'm gonna go run a goddamn wrestling territory, and if I make a fourth of what I'm fucking making right now, I'll be happy. And that's approximately what I made and approximately what I did. And then other shit opened up as a result of that. But, I think Cody realized that he was still young enough and learning to work and getting better because everybody gets better as they go along and they get older, more experienced, etc. And he could do more. And then he went out to Evolve and Northeast Wrestling, and he was on that What Culture pro wrestling event that I did with Jim Ross in 2016 in the UK, and working with Kurt Angle. And he just went everywhere. And I call what was it? The Crockett Cup 2018. He worked with Nick Aldis for the NWA title. I called that. And he worked his shit out on the independents, as we've talked about many times, where he could figure out how to be Cody Rhodes because they hadn't allowed him to be. He knew how he wanted to do it, but he hadn't actually done it as a grown-up adult with experience. So the weight belt or the music or the fucking Cody cutter or all of whatever the fuck, that's where he went and did all that before he was on national TV again. He went away and learned a new hold. We talk about it all the time.
He learned don't bring your dog next to pyrotechnics.
Well, that's something that we hadn't covered on the podcast, so I don't blame him for not. That way, if we'd have talked about that, he would have known that as well.
Hey, let me just say, I thought Cody's entire family, Brandy, his sister, everyone came across greatness, his mom especially.
Yeah.
When it comes to Cody working things out on the indies and you're looking at who he is now, this is such a silly question. Do you think he needed to bleach his hair? Like, he needed to be, he's had his hair bleached now for several years, but I think early on when he went to the indies, he had it bleached and then it went back to normal and then it went back to bleached. Do you think he needed to change the look and kind of go with the blonde hair?
I think...
Did it help?
I don't want to be insulting when I say this, but when Cody has dark hair, to me, he looks like a regular fucking guy. But when he has the same length, same style, just going to blonde from dark, then he looks like he ought to be somebody, even if you don't know who he is. You think, well, that guy, I guess he's somebody that does something. Maybe I should know, because why else would you? It sets him apart a little bit, makes him look a little bit less normal, which not comedically, but just noticeably. So I think it works for him. Now the tattoo on the neck, I would sandblast in a heartbeat, but I don't dislike his blonde hair. And hey, did you see the footage of him producing at shows?
I did.
And does anybody think the first All In show, right? Does anybody think that they could have done that from a wrestling organizational standpoint without Cody being on that team of future EVPs? Who else had any experience whatsoever with a major league television production or a producing background, not only from Dusty, but from his time in the WWF? I can see the buckaroos out there trying to, teach people how to work the hard camera or whatever when they'd barely ever done television to begin with. That he knew how. That's the thing. I believe, whether he inherited or not, but he inherited the desire to have Dusty's mind, to be the producer director rather than just an actor.
I think he inherited a lot of the positives and negatives of Dusty's executive run. I think desire has never been the issue. You brought up him and the Bucks with All In. I know Kenny gets attached, but it's really the Bucks and Cody. And really, when you think about it, it was Cody. Cody's the motivator. Cody was the heartbeat. The Bucks had the buzz. Make no mistake, Cody wasn't as hot then as the Bucks were. Or Omega was just on buzz because he really wasn't wrestling in the States. But Cody was the one who really drummed everything up. And there were aspects where he was talented as an executive. And there were other aspects where he wasn't, either he wasn't there yet, or it's just not his skill set. But I also think there was a desire to, Paul Levesque EVP, we need to be EVP. But I think that's the thing, when you see like the Young Bucks do interviews, like, we're the reason this place exists. Cody was the one who put out that tweet to Meltzer. And Cody was the more business-minded of everyone, despite how many t-shirts the Bucks' wives sell. Or whatever the fuck. And I think Cody it'll probably take time, but he probably deserves more credit than he's been given for AEW existing.
It seems like they had less trouble in the locker room all the way around while he was a part of it.
Is it really that different? Or is it just that Cody and Punk are different people? If Punk was not passive, that's not the word, but if Punk was attempting to be diplomatic all the time.
Diplomatic and conciliatory and trying to bring two parties together. But here's the thing. If Cody was still there and Punk was there, rather than them being one or the other, do you think they'd have had the trouble?
Again, we don't know what issue. Cody, at the time we heard there were issues just because of how much money Punk was getting coming in because Tony was dying to have him. But who knows? Who maybe
well, once that it was established, okay, we're all going to be working here together, then do you think that of all of the EVPs, Cody, it would seem, would have been the level-headed one with a wrestling business background that Punk could have spoken to and could have potentially been the Sami Zayn of the group and get everybody back on the same page before it got to the point of no return?
I also think, you always hear that quote sometimes from like Kevin Nash, about, I guess, sitting in a booking meeting from TNA, and it was like, I realized that Jim Cornette he was kind of the most sane one there. He was the only one saying things that made sense. I think you may have that, if we saw what Punk's style of wrestling television seems to be, and we have a good idea what Cody's style seems to be, eventually you realize we're the only ones kind of doing this kind of thing. Maybe you work together.
Yeah.
But who knows? We'll find out next year at SummerSlam.
Well, we ended up, we got to January of 2022 where Cody's contract status with AEW was uncertain, and Vince and his little carbuncle Bruce flew to Atlanta to go see Cody at his house. And that is something that Vince does when he really wants somebody. He says, well, let's go down there, pal, or up there, or whichever direction he's going.
Who else has he done that for? The Warrior, right?
That wasn't the first time. That was a reconciliation trip.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, but every once in a while, he will go to where the action is.
What's for supper? Guess who?
The man who came to dinner. But anyway, and Cody basically says he left AEW over a personal issue, which was a quote, but he went to the WWE to fulfill his first dream. And now it makes it perfect sense why he took himself out of the AEW title picture at the start of the company. And a lot of people were saying, he doesn't want to be one of those guys. He's not going to put the world title on himself. He's an executive, so he's not going to book himself on top. He didn't want to win any kind of world title on any kind of mainstream television so as not to blunt the angle that he's obviously had in his mind for the WWE, the one he's doing now, to win the belt that they took away from my daddy in the garden before AEW even started, right? Because now it makes sense.
I don't know. I still need to be convinced that the greatest thing in the world wouldn't have been Cody turning heel by going back on the stipulation, winning the belt, doing something evil, kissing Brandy in the middle of the ring, something to piss off the fans.
I'm not saying it wouldn't have been great or it wouldn't have got a reaction.
I don't know if it was his long-term thing.
It makes perfect sense now. He's thought of this. This was his goddamn... I was in the back seat of the car working for WCW thinking about Smoky Mountain Wrestling, reading a road atlas. He thought of this fucking angle and he thought of the way to put it together. And when he got the chance to be a part of making a new company and work for a billionaire and get a lot of money, he said, I'll do everything, but I don't want to do this because it will blunt eventually where I want to go. I'll make it look, and that's part of it also. Like, I'm not going to be self-serving and book myself over, and I will take myself out of the AEW world title picture. Then I can be the TV champion or the TNT, TBS chat, whatever the fuck, but not the world champion. It makes sense now.
I don't know. The other weird thing is with this whole story about Dusty having the belt taken away from him in the Garden in 78 or whatever, like Dusty had the picture above his bed, and it's not even a picture. It's just like a screen cap of the video.
I thought it was a picture.
Was it a picture?
I think it's a picture.
I have to go back and check.
I bet it's one of those George Napolitano specials. But the concept. Yeah, man, he probably sat there and thought, and wouldn't it have been great if that's the one picture that my father kept over his bed?
Here's where I think, unless Cody thought right away, and I don't think he did, that Tony's a loon, and there's no way this is going to fly long term because it's always going to be romper room back here.
How did I figure out something about somebody in 2 phone calls that Cody Rhodes couldn't pick up on after talking to him in person?
You're smarter than Cody Rhodes when it comes to the wrestling business.
I know. Well, but people, come on.
Oh, Cody's smarter about people than you? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying he's been around a lot of these modern-day wrestling people.
Cody Rhodes, the people expert? That could be his next gimmick.
And let's put it this way. It didn't take fucking Inspector Clouseau for me to figure it out either. It was plain as the nose on anybody's face.
But listen,
even Carl Malden.
They were riding a lot of positive momentum when Dynamite debuted. And you saw pictures of all of them at press events. You've never seen smiles on the Bucks or Cody or any of their faces like they were then. Everyone was a believer. They were all in, quite literally.
Yeah.
And then it slowly started to change, but I don't know if Cody, that stipulation was introduced at the beginning of Dynamite, if he knew then just what was going to happen with the company.
Well, but he didn't have to, because still he could say, okay, I've just signed a 3-year contract. So at the end of the 3 years, I'll know whether or not this fucking guy's crazy or not. And I'm not going to use my angle until I find that out, because I've still got it in my back pocket, and that's my fucking jump angle. I'm telling you. I guarantee. But anyway, so at that point, I mentioned this was a 2-hour documentary. And we are not even an hour and a half in. He's left AEW. He makes his surprise debut at WrestleMania. And he tearfully declares the WWE his home, and then he tears his pec. And then, once again, that was a great story. He worked the fucking Hell in a Cell anyway, the dramatic presentation of the match, and, you know, him saying that it was a pec well spent, that the torn pec ended up getting him over even more. And the surgery footage and the training footage. But now we're back at the Royal Rumble 2023. They were stretching the last 30 or 40 minutes of his entire life happened in an hour and 20 minutes, and then the last year took 40 or so. So it slowed down a little bit toward the end. It wasn't any less polished of a program. It was just less gripping because we just lived through all this.
I agree. The first 2/3 were really what I liked about this.
But nevertheless, maybe one of these days we'll find out. We will find out on his deathbed. That's the one thing that I want Cody to utter in 40 or 50 years is, it was my plan all along.
Well, you will see if that happens. That was a review of the Cody Rhodes documentary known as the Cody Rhodes documentary. Find it wherever you find your favorite Cody Rhodes documentaries. But Jim, you can find it anywhere, but some countries you may want to access it. I don't know, I guess maybe on the WWE Network, it would still be updated there. I don't know. Who knows what people want to do, but we know a place or people that can help them do it.
Well, of course, if you want to do something, we know people that can help you do it. We'll just make that blanket statement. We'll sort the things out later on in the wash. But they still do have that WWE network, don't they, in some foreign countries around the world, some international countries, if we're working for Turner instead of foreign. They've still got the network, right?
Right.
So whereas we get screwed over here in the United States of by gum America, people over there willy-nilly in Swaziland and Namibia are just chowing down on them some WWE network and all the things that they had and I guess continue to have that we used to enjoy. Well, now that can all change, folks, because whether it's the WWE network, whether it's Netflix, you know, these people, they're getting some heat with me. These Netflix people. Apparently they're just baiting and switching and just withholding and just keeping people from being entertained. They've got all kinds of shows that they're airing all around the world that you can't get because of your location. And I mean,
I hate that they shut down your video sharing service, Cornetflix.
Well, that's right, because I had tons and tons of fine programming that could only be accessed by people in the lowermost corner of Scandinavia. But nevertheless, now that's screwed too, because it's all geo-blocked around the world, all these things, right? That's a new word that I've learned. That's the word, right? Geo-blocked. Your geography makes you blocked. That's discrimination. If you want to live in Idaho and you like potatoes, I don't know, then why didn't you get your hoe and move to Idaho and be free to pursue a life of religious freedom? But no, if you move to Idaho, you can't see the shit that you are only supposed to see if you live in the United Kingdom. And I think this is bullshit. And that's why our friends at ExpressVPN are doing something about it. Because now it doesn't matter where Netflix wants to show you stuff. It just matters where they think you are. And you, completely free of criminality and in a legal way. This is legal, right?
Yes, of course.
Yes. Okay.
Well, I mean, what ExpressVPN does is legal. What comes out of your mouth, who knows? Stephen Pinu will have to check.
Well, I'm just saying it's legal. You can change your location. As long as you tell the people at ExpressVPN where you want to be from to watch the program that you want to watch, they will put you there. As a matter of fact, you can pick multiple locations. You can gain access to thousands of new shows. All you have to do is tell ExpressVPN and your parole officer where you're going to be. And watch out, because if you've got one of those ankle bracelets on, as soon as you download the ExpressVPN app and punch the button and put yourself somewhere else, chances are your ankle bracelet's going to go off. Now,
chances are none of these things are going to happen. And of course, ExpressVPN is a reputable company that deals with you in a reputable way, and you don't have to worry about any of these kind of issues. You could just look for things like the Great British Sewing Bee or various programs that you wouldn't have access to here in the States.
Well, but if you transport yourself from, say, for example, Upper Alabama to American Samoa so you can watch, the Island Madness series, then would that trigger your ankle bracelet?
Well, it's a virtual, you're not doing anything. It's about your computer. You just happen to be in front of the computer.
So what if the bracelet is on the computer?
How did that happen?
Well, that's because they found shit on your computer that you weren't supposed to have. And you said, hey, it ain't mine. It's on the computer. So they put a bracelet on the computer so that they know where that computer is. That's as simple as can be. But right now, folks, if you're wanting to watch programming and you don't have an ankle bracelet on, we'll come back. Check the website.
Oh, yeah.
ExpressVPN.com. They may have some information on that. But what you do is you go to ExpressVPN.com and you basically pick one of 94 different countries that you want to be in based on which server is currently airing Dumbo Does It Donkey Style. It works with other streaming services like your BBC iPlayer and YouTube, where you can find us. It's compatible with all your devices, the phones, the laptops, the media consoles, the smart TVs, the toasters, the washers, the dryers. It'll work with anything, and it's blazing fast speed. As a matter of fact, while it's operating, if you touch it, you're probably going to burn your fucking fingertips off. But you can stream in HD with zero buffering. It's going to be shiny when they get it to you. No need to buff it or polish it or anything. It just hooks right up. Comes in a box, and you stick the wire in, boom, there you go. So, stop paying full price for streaming services and only getting access to a fraction of their content. Fuck their fractions. Get all their content. Clean them out of content.
No.
Make them so broke they can't pay attention. Take everything they've got.
Then how are they going to make more content?
They'll make some more. They're like potato chips. They'll make more. Get your money's worth right now, folks. Don't be left out at expressvpn.com/JCE. That's my link, expressvpn.com/JCE, and you're going to get 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. Now, if you watch 100 shows that you can't normally watch because you get this, and that's over 3 months, well, that would be you're going to watch 7,000 programs and have a 33 1/3% chance of remembering what you watched if you get expressvpn.com/JCE. 3 months free extra on top of what you're getting already when you get it. Got it? Good.
That's right, ExpressVPN. And Jim, as you always say, this is my show, and we will expressly move on here and expressly
I don't always say that. I just say it whenever I need some help.